Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 431, Your Victory Over Defilement, Part 1. How you can create an environment within your heart for it to be purified. The podcast objectives are: reveal the only environment where purification can occur, reveal the power of hard work combined with a good strategy, and reveal why many have lost the set apart spirit of Elohim. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. The terrific effort in keeping your house clean. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 257 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we completed our analysis of the critical degree of virtue. Enter purification. From now, I must move forward with my current remit. To wit, I must show you how this critical degree of power defeats the critical degree of contempt. After which, you will be positioned to tear down the wall of partition that comes with the spiritual state of defilement. We should begin by reviewing the table to the right, recapping what we have learned about purification. By definition, purification is a process in which someone or something is made pure, freedom from anything that debases, contaminates, or pollutes, a quantifiable assessment of equality and or uniformity with a standard. And the primary objective of purification is to constantly cleanse your heart of all unrighteousness. Now, per its definition and its primary objective, it should be clear how purification defeats the spirit of defilement. To wit, purification is the constant cleansing of your heart. And yet, the cleansing associated with purification doesn't stop with your heart. Quite the contrary, purification has the power to cleanse every division of your soul. Vis-a-vis, it also purifies your will and your mind. We know this because Titus 1:15 reveals that defilement has the power to corrupt your mind as well as your heart. And since your will is the evolution of the union between your heart and your mind, it can also be defiled if either your heart or your mind has been defiled. Here lies the key, my friend, and although I have stated it before, I will state it again. Vis-a-vis, every degree of holiness is superior to its corresponding degree of lawlessness. Not only this, but your battles with the critical degrees of lawlessness are the most straightforward, due to the work that has already been accomplished by the fundamental and focal degrees of holiness. Now, per the image to the right, you can clearly see the work that honesty and righteousness have done in your heart, to wit, the fundamental and focal degrees of virtue. For that reason, The remit of purification is quite simple. That is, to cleanse the heart from all defilement and to ensure that it is always clean, such that your will and your mind are also clean. Now, here lies the inflection, and yet one more testament to the power of the linear model of holiness. Consider this, my friends, and be advised as you seek to be purified. Purification cannot occur in an environment where the actors and or faculties are not being governed by the Ruach. This is plain to see by observing the diagram to the right. Look here. This is an illustration of a heart of contempt. Anything color-coded in red represents defilement. Look here. Every actor and faculty in this heart has been defiled. And when an opportunity presents itself, the man or woman with this heart will act in accordance with the spirit of their defilement. Now, ask yourself the following question. How can purification occur in this environment? Every actor and faculty are fashioned in the spirit of contempt. And thus, I ask again, how can purification occur in a heart of contempt? The sure answer is, it can't. My dear friends, you must believe me. Purification cannot occur in a heart of contempt. Here is why. Purification is a process, and it can only be executed in a heart that has been fashioned to endure the process. Otherwise, the power of purification will be rendered useless, for every time you made any progress in cleansing, the spirit of contempt would trigger one of the bad actors or faculties to cause defilement. Now, the example I chiefly use to illustrate this matter is the endless cycle of cleaning a house with a large family. Along these lines, you will find yourself constantly cleaning your house, and yet it will hardly ever be completely clean. Why? It's because the effort involved in keeping a house completely clean with 10 plus people is huge. And in this example, we're not talking about cleaning your house once. Remember, purification is a process that never ends. Ergo, we are talking about keeping your house clean all day, every day. Here again, even with the best intentions, this is not doable nor sustainable. And so, most of us will settle for a house that is mostly clean. And yet, we will not commit to keeping our house perfectly clean all the time because with a large family, it's very much impossible. Work smarter and harder. Now, the spiritual parallel of this example is as crucial as it is short. To wit, many are trying to unlock the power of a pure heart in an environment where purification cannot be achieved. Per our example of a clean house, they are trying to keep their house perfectly clean when the rate at which their house is being dirtied is higher than the rate at which they can keep it clean. Alas, it's like trying to drain the water from a sinking ship after the ship has reached critical mass. That said, allow me to be very clear. I'm not knocking the effort. I'm a big fan of hard work. And yet, I do prescribe to a philosophy that will save you a lot of time, which is beyond crucial, for we know that time is at a premium in these last days. Enter work smarter and harder. Now, first things first, this philosophy is an upgrade to the popular phrase work smarter, not harder. To its detriment, this philosophy is pitting smart work against hard work, suggesting smart work is better than hard work. On the other hand, my philosophy unites hard work with smart work, revealing that the best way to succeed any enterprise is by working hard and smart from the very start. Here is why. There's a point in every noteworthy enterprise where working harder without a good strategy will result in diminishing returns. Plainly speaking, working harder isn't getting you anywhere. It may have gotten you here, but it won't get you there. Now, it is at this interval, my friend, that you must look for ways to work smarter. To wit, because you didn't take the time to adopt a good strategy from the beginning, you must do so now, or the enterprise will fail. And so, if you are wise, you won't wait until the point where your hard work stops paying off to get smart. Quite the contrary, you, my friend, will work smarter from the very beginning. As I said before, you, my friend, will work hard and smart from the start. All you have to do is create an effective strategy that will guide you through every phase of the enterprise. And then you must put in the work, hard work, to ensure you succeed in every phase. And you will join me in 10,000s like us all over this world who are working smarter and harder in their lives every hour of every day. And you will see that this philosophy will be the answer to every obstacle that comes your way. Now, tying this back to your victory over defilement, you must create an environment where purification can do her work without any resistance. As I mentioned in a prior podcast, you must create an even playing field for your battle with defilement. And you do this quite simply by first unlocking the powers of honesty and righteousness. Here again, the image to the right is an illustration of a heart filled with honesty and righteousness. Per our example, this is a brand new house with no occupants. Now, I want you to ask yourself the following question. How hard will it be to keep this house clean? Remember, it's brand new and no one is living in it. The answer is sure. It won't be hard to keep clean at all. Why? It's because the environment is conducive for the task, just like a heart of honesty and righteousness is conducive for purification. My dear friends, you must believe me. This is the only environment that can support and sustain the purification of your heart. And so I encourage you, if you are struggling with defilement, the first thing you must do is ensure you are following the linear model of holiness. And then make sure you are always working smarter and harder, and let the Ruach take care of the rest. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now, this is indeed a crucial matter for many reasons. And yet, The most crucial reason in these last days is sure, and I touched on it in the most recent podcast. And as I said then, I am touching on it again. Every time you complete the cycle of lawlessness and transgress the command, you are thrust out of the way of holiness. Now, that was the inflection. Here is the problem. To wit, those who are outside of the way of holiness do not have the spirit of Elohim. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, it doesn't matter what past experiences you may have had. If you have been thrust out of the way of holiness due to your persistent transgression of the will of Elohim, you are not being led by his Ruach, truth. It may be an inconvenient truth for those who don't want to follow the example of Yahushua Messiah, and yet it is the truth all the same. Here is why. The Ruach of Elohim is a guide to those who have received the revelation of Yahushua Messiah and are being assimilated to his spiritual standard. And as our guide, the set apart spirit of Elohim is designed to lead and guide us into all truth. Here lies the inflection. Vis-a-vis, truth is in the way of holiness, as is the life of blessings and abundance we are promised if we guard his commands. This is why Yahushua is declaring, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, the question we should chiefly entertain is, what does Yahushua mean when he says, no one comes to the Father except through me? The answer is sure. Vis-a-vis, it is impossible to consistently engage Elohim outside of the way of holiness. My dear friends, this is plain to see. Just ask yourself the following question. Does Yahuwah consistently engage those who consistently operate in lawlessness? Is he the Elohim of the disobedient, the dishonest, the unrighteous, and the defiled? Of course not. And yet, there are countless men and women in this nation who are addicted to lawlessness, who claim to have his spirit. Now, it is true that these are extremely complex matters, and we're not going to cover all the key points in one podcast. And so we must table this discussion and continue it next week. To wit, next week, I will show you how men and women are falling out of the way of holiness and how they are losing the Ruach of Elohim in the process. Not only this, but I will also share the path of recovery. That is, the path you can take to migrate back into the way of holiness if you have fallen out. Trust me, it shouldn't be a complex matter to know if you have fallen out, if you are being honest with yourself. Along these lines, if you are struggling to wield the powers of the Ruach, or if you are struggling to develop an effectual prayer life, these are red flags, for these are primary functions of his spirit. And here is something you should consider about these functions. If you fail to allow the Ruach to function in your life as Yahuwah has designed, he will leave you. For the only way the Ruach would fail to function in your life as designed, is if you are not walking in obedience to the will of Elohim. Now, here again, it will take an honest man or woman to make this concession, and it will take a righteous man or woman to make the necessary changes in their life to ensure that they are A, always in the way of holiness, and B, persistently led by the Ruach of Elohim. And that's what we're going to do starting next week. Vis-a-vis, if you are in the way, I will show you how to stay in the way. And if you have fallen out of the way, I will show you how you can get back in to stay. For soon it will be too late. And if you're not in, you'll never get in. Yahuwah bless you until then. Now, here is the final word. If Elohim is the one you glorify, do the work to ensure your heart is purified. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, it is irreligious to believe Yahuwah will receive any form of worship, prayer, or praise if we are defiled with doubt, disobedience, contempt, or any of the other degrees of lawlessness. For look, listen, it has been written, wash yourselves, make yourselves clean, put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Stop doing evil. My dear friends, this is not some isolated verse in Scripture. Quite the contrary. This command is one of the 5 highest peaks of scriptural theology. Hear me, O Israel. Yahuwah has made it quite clear that he does not hear sinners. He does not hearken to those who operate in lawlessness when he has created a way for each of us to purify ourselves by the spiritual standard of Yahushua Messiah, so that we are made clean. Here lies the inflection. To wit, the problem is not the way. Quite the contrary. It's the disobedient children in this nation who don't want to follow it. The false brothers and sisters in our midst who are following the disastrous example of the former nation while resisting the spiritual standard of Yahushua Messiah because they don't want to be clean. And as we know what befell our forefathers, I recommend do everything within your power to guard your Ruach. For look, he is the only help we know. And if he should withdraw himself from me, if he would take his Holy Spirit away from me, there is nowhere for me to go. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on all the lessons you have heard this week and ask the Father to give you clarity on anything you are struggling to receive. And if you are led, please feel free to reach out to me. You can fill out a form on our website and let us know what questions you have. And remember, the only question that can truly hurt you is the one you fail to ask. Last but not least, enjoy the upcoming Shabbat and the weekend, and be ready to get back at it next week as we continue to make our calling and election sure in pursuit of the precious and priceless seal of Elohim. Now, here is what's next. We conclude today's podcast, End Times 431, Your Victory Over Defilement, Part 1. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 432, Your Victory Over Defilement, Part 2. I will post this podcast on Monday, March 17th, 2025. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.